All right, welcome to part 3 of my Chapter 9 lecture on arrays for CIS 212, VisualBasic.net. Okay, when we left off before, we're going to start talking about two-dimensional arrays. And so let's take a look at the GUI quickly so you can kind of understand what I've got here. All right, so essentially what this does is it finds the rent for a given floor of a apartment building. And so if they type in a 1, it's going to return a price for a typical apartment on the first floor, second floor, all the way up to the 5th floor. So let's go look at the code. All right, so I have declared a two-dimensional array, and you'll notice here, just as in the other one, I've just got a comma in there because the number on the left of the comma are the rows, and the number on the right of the comma are going to be the columns, which are vertical. And since it's a two-dimensional array, I can do the same thing as I did before with a single-dimensional array, and I can initialize it, and it will fill in the rows and the column sizes for me. I don't have to put them in there. I could, but I don't have to. So just like in the single-dimensional array, you initialize it, and you have to have opening and closing curly braces. However, I've got individual sets of numbers in here separated by commas, enclosed in curly braces. See the 1 comma 500, they're wrapped in a curly brace, and then another comma, and then there's another set of curly braces, another set of numbers. What this is, this would be considered row 0, and so there are 2 columns per row. So if this is row 0, I've got a column here and a column here. Well, columns start just like rows. They start at 0 and then 1. And so as far as your indexes go, this is the data stored there. So at row 0, right here, I'm initializing column 0 to the number 1. That's the first floor. And column 1, index 1, $500. Okay, so at the first floor, I got $500. Second floor, I got $750. Third floor, they cost $1,000. Fourth floor, they cost $1,500. And fifth floor, they cost $5,000. So they get more expensive as you go up closer to the penthouse level. They're more expensive, nicer apartments. All right, so Y is just drives my loop here, right? And again, you've probably seen, like in 150, we use nested for loops to traverse two-dimensional arrays. And that would be typically true. Except in this case, all we need to do is look at each row and see if they have given us a column number there or a floor number, which would be column 0. And I have an if in here, and notice I'm going from y equals 0 to apartments.length. Length is a method of the array object, which is called apartments. And notice I'm going apartments.length minus 1. There's a reason for that. We talked about the off by 1 error. Because you start at 0 and you go to 1 less than the number of elements, which is what length represents. And again, we're stepping in increments of 1. That's optional if it's 1, otherwise you have to put it in there. And what I'm doing here is, up here I'm pulling the floor the user gave me out of here, converting it to a double and sticking it in a variable name called double number. It probably should have just been called double floor, and now that I think back on it. But that's what that is. Double number is actually the floor that they've given us. So I'm looking through, and for each row, which Y represents, I'm looking at column 0. I know it's going to be column 0 because regardless of the row, the floor number is always occupied or occupies column 0. All right, and I declared Y outside the loop because I need that to find out the price. When I break out, that means for that row I have a match for the floor number, and I want the associated price. So unlike here, where I'm looking at row, whatever it happens to be, when you're looping through 0 to 4, I'm looking at the floor number. If I get a match between that and what they gave me for a floor number, I'm exiting out of the loop, and then I'm outputting the price, which is located at the same place we broke out, Y, which is the row, because we found a match there. I'm just moving over one column to get the associated price with it. So that's why I didn't cover parallel arrays, because this sort of supersedes parallel arrays. Instead of having 2 one-dimensional arrays that are linked, you now do everything in a 2-dimensional array, so you have one object to deal with. All right, so let's run this and see what happens. All right, let's start off. I'm just going to do floor 1, and I'll hit get rent, and then it fires off my event handler here. So let's see, let me delete some things here. I already put in there, delete, there we go. All right, so apartments is already initialized, and look what we have at 0, 0, which is row 0, column 0, I have 1. That's the first floor. If I move over one column at row 0, column index 1, I have 500. That's the rent for the apartment on the first floor. And as you can see, you go all the way through to the 4th index or the 5th floor. And so we start off here, and then double number again, that's just the floor. So let's step on through. We're going to grab that number out of there, which it was 1. So when I get into here, I start off at 0 for the counter, which is going to represent my row. Now let's see, apartments Y, which is currently 0 because it's going to loop through in increments of 1, column 0 equals what? Floor 1. We typed in floor 1, so this is going to be true. We have a match, so out we go. As soon as we get inside, that exit 4 is going to blow out of the outermost loop. It's break in some languages, exit 4 here. And now we're going to look at the price associated at that row. Guess what it is? It's going to be this. Let's add it in here real quick. It's going to display it. $500. So that's right. So at floor 1, we have a rent per month of $500. So let's blow through this, and there you go. All right. I'm going to put 3 now. Actually, and if this were a real application, if they change anything in this text box, and you can deduce that by looking at key press event, see if they've changed anything. If they do change anything, that will fire. And you could delete the price, but I didn't do that here because this is a simple, cheap, quick little thing. So I'm just going to hit get rent again. And we typed in floor 3, right? So there's my floor 3. So it's going to start at the first row and look at column 0. Do they match? Well, let's look down here. So no, they do not. We're only looking at the first floor. They want the rent for the 3rd floor. So this is going to keep going until it gets a match. So it's going to keep going. Now y is equal to 2. They're not the same, so it's just going to keep going until they are the same. Now they are the same if you look in the watch window. They gave me floor 3. We're seeing floor 3. So press F10, and their rent, as you can see here, is $1,000. Exit 4, output there it is, right there, $1,000. Let's do one more, and then we'll be through with this. Let's see, let's do 5. So we want the penthouse level. So it's going to loop all the way through. Watch the watch window down here. I'm stepping through it one line at a time. It's going to find a match at the last iteration. Blows out, and it's going to output, should be $5,000 according to this. And it is. Okay? Well, I believe that gets us through chapter 9. I will see you next time.